Hello, ladies and gents, and welcome to this reading vlog going through each and every chapter so far that I can go through, and by the time I'm done with this series, I would assume that George R.R. Martin will be finished with The Winds of Winter, because it's taking me forever to read this book. Yeah, I know I'm taking forever to read this book, just like George is taking forever to write the last two novels, but, you know, it's just the way it is sometimes, life, you know, kind of whatever. Anyway, though, enough with all the excuses. Moving on to Chapter 2, Catelyn. Just Catelyn. Catelyn 1, if you will. This chapter's basically kind of setting up, I guess, Ned being the supposed, I guess, main character for Game of Thrones, even though I don't live under a rock, okay? I know Ned, aka played by Sean Bean in the show. Of course, you know, Sean Bean dies and everything. You're kind of putting a spoiler alert that Sean Bean is playing your character in a film or TV show that he's probably going to die. So, yeah, I know Ned's going to die. But this chapter supposedly kind of brings in, I guess, the supposedness of Ned being the main character of this book series. Because, hey, you got to have a main character in a fantasy book series. It can't just be an ensemble cast. Boy, did these books and show prove that wrong. But anyway, just knowing that, you get to experience a lot of the supposed backstory of the Starks and all that. I don't know why. I'm a big fan of just conversations and all that type of stuff, especially when reading it. If it's realistic, I'm all for it because, hey, when I write some certain stories and all that, I have a hard time with these conversations and stuff like that. So I just have to admire just getting down to earth and just talking about random stuff instead of just talking about, oh, how's the world going to end? How are you going to stop the world from ending? You know, that type of thing. Just having just a sit down, just general conversation, which is what most humans in the world population have had over the course of forever, basically, have done in a fantasy series. I don't know. That's just kind of exhilarating, honestly. It really tickles my reading fancy, if you will. And most of it is just them talking about how the kids got the direwolves and how, you know, Robert is coming to see Ned and all that. You know, it's kind of like that type of thing. And it's done in such a way that, again, most other books would kind of say like, oh, the king's coming, we gotta prepare and everything. But this is done so down to earth. It's just like, oh, Stan from the bookstore is coming over for dinner, you know, gotta get things ready, gotta get the house ready and stuff like that, you know. It's told like that. I gotta admire George for doing this. It's just the little things, little nitpicky things that I just find very, very interesting about this chapter specifically. And I know Catelyn, apparently, I don't know, haven't read the book, haven't gotten past episode 7, season 1 of Game of Thrones quite yet. I don't know what goes on later on, but I know people hate Catelyn Stark later on. But here she just seems like a mother, and she seems like, you know, just whatever, you know. I know there's history between her and Ned because Jon's a bastard and all that, but they seem like, you know, real people. It's very interesting. I can't really put my finger on it quite yet. Maybe it's just I really can't put my finger on it, just how unique this is. Because when you're trying to, you know, read the greatest fantasy novel of all time, you wouldn't expect there to be dinner plans, you know? Like a chapter solely based on a couple talking about dinner plans. You wouldn't expect that to really show up, but it does, and it's kind of refreshing. I wouldn't say that this is the best chapter, in my opinion. I would kind of put it below the first chapter if I was rating them, but still, I have to admit, this is a lot of stuff that I wouldn't expect a fantasy series to have, but it has. And I know that it's kind of a cliche that Game of Thrones kind of changed fantasy, kind of like how Lord of the Rings kind of changed fantasy and all that type of stuff, but I gotta say, if there's more stuff like this, I'm all for it, but I know that it's not necessarily going to be like that. I don't know. I just like to see chapters where there's not a lot of doom and gloom. I know there's going to be a lot of doom and gloom in this series. I am fully aware of that, but just seeing non-doom and gloom and just having like a couple talk, it's kind of refreshing to say the least. But anyway though, guys, what did you think about this chapter? What do you think of Catelyn Stark? Is she gonna suck? What are your thoughts? What are your opinions? Comment, let me know, and don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell. More vids coming your way, and hey, take care, guys.